Okay, so now I'm over at my pressing station. Of course, we're quilters. We know why we say pressing versus ironing. And I want to show you a great way of pressing your half square triangles to keep them from stretching along the bias. So before you, I have the tail of two triangles. This one's been pressed properly. This one has been stretched. And it's going to be a little difficult to show you the difference because I've got the camera at a bit of an angle. And of course that distorts things and keeps your squares from looking like a square. Which is why if you're taking a quilt photo, you always want to take it straight on from the center. But I've got my ruler here. Just one of these little square up deals. And we want to see if this one's going to measure 4.5. And it measures up very nicely. Yep. Now this one was pressed differently. And we're going to line it up. And it does not want to line up perfectly. I've got too much over here. I've got too much over here. If I get that center line up, it's just not lining up. I don't have enough fabric. Enough fabric along the bottom. These were cut exactly the same, but they were not pressed the same. And I'll show you what I did. What we want to avoid is taking our triangle pairs. And of course you can always press or set your seam. It's not a very attractive shot of the back of my hand, so sorry. And then just coming in here, flipping it open and running down the seam. That's going to stretch the fabric. And if I get out a little bit farther, let's see if you'll see that. If I go along here, you can actually see a ripple of fabric going ahead of the point of my iron. And that is stretching it. It's stretching it this way. We don't want to do that. What we do want to do is take our little triangle pair, and in your directions, it's got you ironing some triangles to the dark side, like standard, and some of them are being pressed to the light side. So whichever way you're pressing to, put that on top. Set your seam. I'm not using steam. I have water in my iron, but I'm not using it. I've got it turned off. Set the seam. Works beautifully with our Aurifil cotton thread. And then you're just going to pull it up, and you're going to go across this way. And you're going to come back, and you're going to go across this way. And that way you're going up and over in two separate motions. And that keeps your triangles from stretching on the bias. We're pressing with the grain, the lengthwise grain and the crosswise grain, but not hitting that bias. And then once I've got it pressed nice and flat, you know, depending on who you talk to, some people will give it a jolt of steam once it's pressed flat. I'm not going to do that. Get it nice and flat. Get out our little iron, or not our iron, our ruler, and check our measurements. So there we're nicely square. So again, it is, let's put it this way, set the seam, press it up, press it over. Then press the whole thing. But none of this back and forth thing. And that will keep your squares nice and square. This has been Amy Johnson from So Simple of Lynchburg, and also AmyQuilts.com, bidding you farewell.